So let's show you those National League standings for where the postseason stands around the NL. The Phillies, despite the loss yesterday in Milwaukee, still the league's best record. The Dodgers rallied to split the first two games of their series in Miami. Shohei Ohtani, 49th stolen base of the year. He's got 48 home runs. It was basically everybody else going yard yesterday. So the Dodgers trail the Phils by just a full game for that top spot. Milwaukee, 2 games behind the Dodgers. That's the order of the divisional favorites. But the Brewers, the only team with a clinched divisional crown at this moment. Donnie, on this morning, the day after Milwaukee wins the National League Central, they're 11 games in front of both St. Louis and Chicago. The Cubbies lost yesterday to the Oakland Athletics. It already clinched the divisional crown for Milwaukee, and then they walked it off against the Phils. But I do want to take a moment here because, of course, our producer extraordinaire who tracks these numbers all year long, Joe Frizo, telling us the Brewers were 7-1, plus 700 to win the National League Central entering this year. It was the 4th best number in a 5-team division, despite Milwaukee being a perennial playoff team the last half-decade with Craig Counsell. Counsell leaves for the friendly confines of Chicago to take over the managerial spot of the Cubs. Pat Murphy thrust in there for the Brew Crew. They run away with the National League Central Division. What a year it was in Milwaukee. They hope to continue it with some postseason success.
Yes, and also there's some key points here that we're going to make. The Brewers had a very good season, and maybe a lot of people didn't expect it based on the odds at the FanDuel Sportsbook. But now you see it play out. They clinched yesterday, Ben. That's September 18th. I've talked about this, many, many times.
Yep.
What is their setup now down the stretch? Because they're in a mode where, yes, they could catch the Phillies. Yes, they could catch the Dodgers. But we could be looking at 7 to 10 days out from the playoffs, them not really having a realistic look at either one of those spots moving up. And then they say, okay, the pressure is off. Let's have some fun. And just the human element creeps in, Ben. You head to the ballpark. You're still going to get your same work in. But that mindset isn't, oh, my goodness, we have to win tonight to try to stay a game ahead of the Chicago Cubs in the division to make the playoffs. When that mindset changes, then you hit the playoffs versus a team like the New York Mets, let's just say, have been grinding for the past month and a half and have stayed in playoff mode or completely engaged. Sometimes you get caught right away in the playoffs. I want to see if that plays out that way. I'm not saying it's going to, because the Brewers are a quality team, and you shouldn't just disrespect them because they haven't played meaningful baseball in 7 to 10 days. But we've seen that path over the past couple of years here, and that's the only thing I worry about now with the Brewers. Would you have liked to clinch a little bit later as a team? No, you want to clinch as soon as possible. Of course, that's the goal, but let's just see how they play. We're saying we're going to set up our rotations. Let's not burn our bullpen here, and then you just expect to flip that switch once again when you get to the playoffs.
It's a really good point, DRS. It has been rest versus rust with the expanded MLB postseason the last few years. 2 wild card teams making it to the World Series a season ago. It's been a huge component of the debate around this expanded postseason. Now, for Milwaukee, again, they're 2 games behind LA, still in the hunt for the opening round bye. If they even need it, they might get their rest. But not just that, DRS, in playing a hot team that has grinded it out over the final month once they reach the postseason, but potentially determining who that team could be in the 3-6 matchup in the Major League Baseball postseason to begin in the wild card round, because 7 of their final 10 games come against Arizona. It's this 4-game set that starts today in Milwaukee against the D-backs in their final series of the year against the New York Mets for 3 games, again at home in Wisconsin. And that's when you saw those National League standings, how important the wild card chase is right now. The Padres up by 2.5 games over both the Mets and the D-backs, who are tied there for the 2nd and 3rd wild card spots. The Braves back by 2 full games as of this moment. All of those teams, 10 games remaining in this season. Now to the American League, DRS, with just 10 games remaining, the Detroit Tigers are only a half game behind the 3rd and final American League wild card spot. Why? You turn to your ace. Tarek Skubal delivers yesterday on the road in Kansas City. The Tigers sweep the Royals this week. 4-2 the victory yesterday. Detroit, a road moneyline favorite. The Tigers have won 4 straight, 9 of their last 11. They have won 18 of their last 25 since August 22nd. DRS, on August 22nd, Detroit was 4 games below 500. They are now 7 games above 500. The Tigers try to make a last stand to get into the postseason.
Yes, and also yesterday, I like the under in this game, and I like the Tigers. Here's the interesting point here. The public beat around the Sharps yesterday, and I was on the public side, which was the Tigers. This game, Ben, was hovering between minus 150s and minus 160s, depending on where you were shopping yesterday, and this crashed down around minus 130 for the Detroit Tigers. I said, I can't figure this out. Skubel's one of the best pitchers out there, but Kansas City obviously needing that game and had a decent pitcher on the mound, but I didn't take the bait. I just stayed with Detroit, and Skubel, once again, was good. Only 5 innings pitched yesterday and 95 pitches, but gave you what you needed. 5 innings pitched, only 1 earned run, kept your team in it, and the Detroit Tigers are red hot. And here's the problems that we started to talk about a while ago with Kansas City. It wasn't as if we doubted Kansas City. They are talented enough to make the playoffs, but it's not really the MO of that organization where it's like, 10 out of the last 13 years, we made the playoffs here. We're used to this grind down the stretch. How will they handle it down the stretch? They haven't handled it well. And now when a team is breathing right down your throat, a half game out of making the wild card, and you're on a losing streak, you better turn it around quickly here. And maybe that MO isn't there for Kansas City to do that. We'll find out, though.
KC's still comfortable as of this moment, but they've lost 4 in a row, and they're just 7-9 in September. They've got a game-and-a-half lead for the second spot in the AL wild card over Minnesota. The Twins, a golden opportunity yesterday, DRS, in Cleveland. In the third game of a 4-game set, Minnesota entering the 7th, a 2-1 lead. Josh Naylor, though, homers in the 7th for Cleveland, a tie at 2. We go to extras. Okay, Carlos Correa, 2 RBI single in the 10th. The Twins take a 4-2 lead into the home half of that frame. The Guardians respond. 3 runs in the bottom of the 10th. Brian Arocchio, the RBI game winner for Cleveland. They walk it off against the Twins. They were a home favorite, but Minnesota, Donnie, now just 7-10 in September. They've lost 8 of their last 12. The Twins clinging to a half-game lead over Detroit for the last wild card spot.
Absolutely devastating loss. When you get the extra innings and you get the first run right in the top of the 10th inning, you can anticipate that the team in the bottom of the inning is supposed to also get that run. But when you get 2 runs, that puts you in the driver's seat. You're supposed to win that game, or at least worst case scenario, give up 2 runs and push it to the 11th inning. They gave up 3 in the bottom of the 10th. That hurts.
Oof, it's back. Quickly, we'll show you the AL standings in a minute. Quickly, let's show you the American League playoff picture so you have it before we transition to Thursday Night Football inside MetLife Stadium between the Jets and the Patriots. DRS, the top spot in the American League at this moment, it's the New York Yankees. The Guardians have only played 151 games, so 11 remaining. The 4th and final of their midweek set against the Twins today. The Yanks have a game-and-a-half lead. No odds out, though, for the American League's number 1 overall seed. The Yankees yesterday did clinch a playoff berth back into the postseason after missing out on October a year ago. That means 7 times in the last 8 MLB campaigns, New York into the playoffs. This will be their 11th playoff appearance since their last World Series in 2009. Of course, that is always the expectation in the Bronx.
Yes, it is. And also, I do think the Yankees, and I've said this all summer long, still the best team in the American League, even when it was a little bit choppy about a month and a half ago when they lost that lead to the Baltimore Orioles. Now, I do believe they should be able to win the pennant and get to the World Series. But also, if we are looking at that wild card standings here, the 2 top teams, the Orioles and the Royals, losing streaks of 3 and 4 games respectively here. Not playing great baseball down the stretch, which allows the teams like the Minnesota Twins, they're breathing a little bit of relief here because they're not being run away from the top 2 teams already in. But now the Detroit Tigers closing that gap, winning 4 straight games. I don't think anybody's going to overtake the Orioles. You got a 4-game lead. That should be almost impossible to blow down the stretch unless you lose every single ball game. With the Royals, Twins, and Tigers, that is a de facto coin flip. And usually you might say, like, maybe it's not if the Royals had won 4 in a row to finally get in and take that game-and-a-half lead in the wild card race. But that's not the case. They're playing bad baseball right now. So when you look at the 4-game losses, turns into 5, 6, and 7, the pressure just builds in that locker room. They need a win at all costs at this point, to calm down and say, it's going to be okay. We're still in the playoff race. We're winning games again. But I think the Royals, Twins, and Dodgers is going to be so much fun to watch when maybe a couple weeks ago, we were just figuring it was the Orioles, Royals, and Twins are in and nobody else can chase them down. And now look at the standings. We got a race over there.
The Yanks with the win yesterday against Seattle, 2-1 in extras, a base running gaff for Julio Rodriguez. He was scared of a bat that went flying out of the hands of Randy Arozarena and then was picked off at third. It would have been the game-tying run in the bottom of the 10th. So Seattle 5 games behind Houston, now 3 games out of the American League wild card chase. Quickly on the O's, 26-30 since the All-Star break, 6-9 now in the month of September. It has been a struggle. They trail the Yankees by 5 games in the American League East, but still 4 games in front of Minnesota, 2.5 ahead of Kansas City for that top spot. I have bet the Detroit Tigers to make the American League postseason at plus 140. Number now at plus 126 for the Tigers to claim the number 6 seed in the American League playoffs, which would be that third and final wild card spot, plus 250. The Twins still minus 310 to get to the postseason. We'll talk about that fourth and final game of their midweek set in Cleveland today, and if the Twins can stop the bleeding. Live right here on this Thursday on the early line, our MLB insider Craig Mish is here, the host of Newswire, and a guy that has a pulse in college football as well as we get you ready for week number 4. Craig, you know what the rule is. When you started talking college football, I was hoping you had heard something from those donors in Gainesville, but we shall see. We'll see what happens on Saturday in Stark Vegas for Florida and Mississippi State. But maybe you have some more news for us as we look at the official home stretch. Just about 10 games remaining for every team around Major League Baseball. A week and a half remains of this regular season.
Yeah, I mean, in Gainesville, they probably have a GoFundMe going. They put things on OfferUp, Mercari, eBay, just trying to get as much as they can to figure out the buyout. Beyond that, I got nothing for you. Life goes on in the SEC this week.
Yet you have nothing for us, Craig. That I am sure of. But let's make sure that in these final few weeks of this MLB regular season, with so much that can determine the postseason outlook in either league, we touch them all today. It's time for the Daily Basis. One Craig's thoughts on another. Craig Kimbrel, DFA'd yesterday by the Baltimore Orioles. A disastrous second half for a guy at the back of the bullpen in Baltimore. He was let go yesterday. Craig, you see the caption there. It says, Craig cut. I got very worried when I saw that with a quick skim of the rundown yesterday. Something had been happened to the Daily Basis. I'm glad that is not I'm glad that is not the case. But Craig, for your thoughts on another Craig, what happened in the second half for Kimbrel in Baltimore?
I mean, it's what happens to all pitchers at this stage of Kimbrel's career. The Orioles were signed him very smartly, but were forced to use him early and often in a lot of different situations. This was not the plan, of course. They had Felix Bautista as their closer. They brought in Kimbrel to package along with Yennier Cano in the back end. The Orioles didn't do a ton at the deadline, as we've talked about over and over again. So therefore, they handed the ball to Kimbrel way too many times, gave up 6 runs the other day. I think if you look at track record for his career and you compare him to some others, like Trevor Hoffman and Billy Wagner, who I think is going to get in the Hall of Fame in his next try, I think Kimbrel's going to be a Hall of Famer eventually. May not be the first try, second try, third, but eventually I do think he gets in. But I think it's fair to say that it's probably the end of the line from him being effective. Now, Ben, I would say this. If Kimbrel wants to pitch for another 2 or 3 years, come in the 6th inning, maybe in some losing situations with the White Sox or some other team, he absolutely will get signed and he can continue to pitch. He can, if they got to tear the jersey off him, this is what happens in baseball. But as far as him being an 8th or 9th inning guy in the future, I think we've seen the end of that.
In all walks of life there, Craig, they always say in different sports here, looks like he lost his fastball, and looks like Craig Kimbrel indeed lost his fastball. If we are flipping over to the AL here, the standings, looks like we're going to have a matchup in the playoffs that's going to come right down to the wire. If we're just focusing here on the AL top teams, the Yankees, Guardians, Astros, we don't think anybody's going to challenge them. But my goodness, the Detroit Tigers here, Craig, sit a half game out of a playoff spot, surging up the standings. The Royals are falling back. The Twins are trying to hang in there. The Baltimore Orioles look like they're going to the playoffs, but we have some fun left in the tank in the AL. Who gets in, Craig, here? Who are those final spots?
Yeah. This is the time of the year where people stop paying a lot of attention to baseball, unfortunately. But if you are paying attention and you're watching the teams that are hot, there's certainly a chance that a team like Detroit not only gets in, but also goes far. Like, you really have to monitor this sort of stuff. I may take a shot here on them getting to the ALCS or even further than that. I mean, the odds are just so long at this point, but there's no team playing better baseball. And the team that is hot at the end of the season generally goes the furthest. Now, again, it doesn't apply to all teams here, but the Tigers right now are playing phenomenal baseball, pitching incredibly. They're dominating right-handed pitching also. Riley Green has done well. Kerry Carpenter has done well. So I kind of like what I'm seeing with the Tigers. They may not even make the playoffs. Certainly that's possible too. But if I'm placing bets on anything, give me the team that is the hottest, that's a game or two out, and I'll ride with them to see how far they go.
Detroit 18-7 since August 22nd when they were 4 games below 500. The Tigers trying to snap a decade drought from postseason baseball. It would be their first playoff berth since 2014. Craig, Donnie asked you for the American League who gets in. I ask a similar question in the National League. The Mets and the D-backs tied for the final 2 spots. The Padres in front by 2.5 games for the top spot in the wild card chase. And the Braves now a full 2 games back. Are the 3 wild card teams currently in those spots, or will this look different in about 10 days' time?
Yeah, this one is a little silly to handicap because you have the Mets and Braves playing each other next week. So it's, we'll be back on the show. That's when we can really break this all down. You have a juicy head-to-head matchup. One team wins 3, the other team loses 3. That team's getting in. I mean, there's only going to be 3 games left after that point. So I think we should probably reset this one and touch on that series next week because that's going to determine it.
Okay. How about this, though? Minnesota and also Cleveland coming down the stretch where the Twins desperately need a victory today. It's roughly a pick-em. Woods Richardson will be on the mound for the Twins versus Quintillo for Cleveland. Cleveland's got things basically wrapped up in the division. What are we seeing today? Could the Twins be in for a win today?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Cleveland's been great at home. I mean, they've dominated throughout the season. Minnesota's a sub-500 team on the road, and so those things point to that for me. I certainly think there's a shot that Cleveland ends up winning today. But, guys, we've reached that point in the season where you need to understand what's happening here. When a team clinches in Major League Baseball, more often than not, you don't see full lineups the next day. You need to pay attention to this stuff. The Brewers, the Yankees, the guys, this is going to be going on for the next 7 days or so. This is an instant fade on every team that clinches the postseason and has that party that night. You don't know what the lineups are going to look back, but you have to do it. Look, there's no guarantees in sports betting. There's no guarantees in life. But more often than not, at the very least, those teams want to give the players the day off after clinching. It happens a lot. They even pull guys throughout the game. Look for that between now and next Saturday. It's a really good opportunity, I think, as we come down the stretch.
The Milwaukee Brewers, the first team to clinch a division, start a 4-game set at home today against the hungry Arizona team that is trying to stay afloat in the wild card chase. Brandon Pfaadt and the D-backs, just a very short road favorite in Wisconsin. Craig Mish, great insight as always. More MLB handicaps next. We continue our Major League Baseball breakdowns on this Thursday, a rather large Thursday slate. 12 games around the bigs today. Most teams only have 10 left. Some single digits, teams like the Guardians, still have 11 remaining. And as we focus, DRS, on the National League wildcard chase to begin, the Mets in a comfortable spot, tied with the Diamondbacks for what would be the 2nd and 3rd spots in the NL wildcard chase and in those standings. Now 2 games in front fully of the Atlanta Braves. But it's not necessarily an easy series for the Amazons like it was in the sweep over the Nationals. The Mets at home tonight against the Phillies, the best team in baseball, the top team in the National League. Minus 138 is now the number on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Luis Severino, the home favorite against Taijuan Walker and the Phils. Does it make sense to see New York as the home favorite tonight in Citi Field?
It does, if we're just looking at the pitching matchup and not taking a look at much else here, because Taijuan Walker, the one thing we know this year, he struggled mightily with the Philadelphia Phillies and has been injured here. The Met of the past, now the Philly here of the future. He did come in last week. I think it was like 3 innings scoreless in one of those long relief appearances, which gave the Philadelphia Phillies a chance to come back and win a baseball game, and they did. So credit him on that. But as a starting pitcher, you take a look at the last 30 days, even with those clean 3 innings, 81 batters faced, a 286 ISO, and a 482 242 weighted on base percentage. If we look through his 351 batters that he's faced this year, it's a 248 ISO and a 401 weighted on base percentage. Maybe the only saving grace for Taijuan Walker is that Mets lineup that we project tonight hasn't hit right-handed pitching all that well. Winker, Alonso, and Vientos above average ISO power numbers. Everybody else has been below the belt. But if we do take a look at that Phillies lineup today, starting to come out of that little funk they had on offense for a while. Luis Severino, decent pitcher, struggling with left-handed batters, which puts you right in that Bryce Harper wheelhouse with a 268 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 438. But as we talked about the Mets not hitting right-handed pitching well, the Phillies have done extremely well. If you remove Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, and Bryson Stott, everybody's above average against right-handed pitching over the past month. So instead of me taking a side tonight, I think there's a legitimate chance, even though it's a playoff atmosphere, we can go over those 8 runs and score close to double digits and cash this ticket.
Yeah, 8 is that total. Philadelphia yesterday in Milwaukee losing 2-1 in walk-off fashion. The Brewers clinching the National League Central yesterday, which does lead us to what is a very interesting series that begins today, a 4-game set in Wisconsin. But the Brew Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind L.A., that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October to earn that opening round bye past the wild card round. If Milwaukee does not do that, and the Mets, who have the season series tie-breaking advantage over the Arizona Diamondbacks, New York won 4 of 7 against Arizona this year, this could be our opening round matchup in Milwaukee in that wild card round. It would be the Brewers as the 3 seed, the Diamondbacks as the 6 seed. You heard from Craig Mish. Milwaukee popped the champagne yesterday, the first to claim a divisional title in MLB this year. Arizona slumping a little bit as of late, 9-12 since the end of August, at least August 25th, trying to make sure they hold on to a wild card spot. Brandon Pfaadt gets the start, and now Arizona is a road favorite. Hand up, DRS, during their commercial break. From our MLB insider's mouth to the FanDuel Sportsbook, I bet Arizona money line.
Yeah, and I think Arizona has a really good chance. And also, I think both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups. So maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys. If we're taking a look at Tobias Myers here on the mound, he struggled last 30 days, a $190 ISO against and a 346 weighted on base percentage. Take a look at that lineup here tonight that we're anticipating for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Outside of, let's just say, Ketel Marte's 248 weighted on base percentage, along with Jake McCarthy, everybody else is plus and has some really good numbers against right-handed pitching. If we flip it over and say, all right, Milwaukee, not really known for scoring a ton of runs. Brandon Pfaadt will be on the mound. He struggled the past 30 days. And you take a look at Churio, Contreras, Mitchell, and Adames, all elevated ISO and weighted on base percentages here. You see the graphic up there, 8. Typically, you lean towards the under, which I did yesterday in the Phillies-Milwaukee game. But I think these two pitchers have the chance to struggle today, and I think we get runs. Let's go over 8 again.
DRS, let's make it very quick here. Chris Sale and the Braves, greater than a $2 favorite in Cincinnati in the rubber match against the Reds. Sale is 17-3 with a 2.35 ERA. It's the best in baseball. Can the Reds get to him at all today and pull off the upset at home?
I don't think so. We're looking at maybe an Atlanta Braves team total on top of it. Sale's been nothing short of phenomenal. Also, just forget about Chris Sale being the best pitcher in the National League. If we're looking from a Reds perspective against any lefty, they've really struggled over the past 30 days. The Braves should have a walk-away winner today against the Cincinnati Reds.
Sale has not lost a game since the end of June. He has not given up more than 2 earned runs since the start of June. That's 17 starts in a row.